Calling to order the May 31st regular St. Charles County Council meeting. We'll start with an invocation from Jason Minershagen, Pledge of Allegiance by Mike Elam. Please stand. Remove your hats, gentlemen. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you. Father God, creator of the universe and all things that are in it, we humble ourselves tonight before you. You are above all, and there is none like you. God, we are grateful for the blessings of protection and providence that you've given us, that we live in a free nation. And in light of yesterday's remembrance of the high cost of that freedom, Lord, we lift in prayer the families of all our servicemen and women who have paid that ultimate price, that you would grant those families peace and a hope that can only come from you, God. God, we're also grateful to you that we live in a nation that allows us, we the people, to play a part in electing the leaders that you have put in place to govern over us, and that we can gather freely here tonight to peacefully let our grievances be known and to work through those differences together. For God, it is our differences that make up the melting pot of our nation. And may tonight be an opportunity that is fruitful towards your will, Lord. May our leaders here tonight and all across our nation seek your wisdom in their decisions. Let their hearts be filled with your spirit. Let their minds be guarded against evil, and their words and their actions be guided and directed by you and your will. Lord, I pray that the voices of our concerned citizens here tonight be honest and true, yet respectful and considerate, authentic and genuine, yet humble and tempered with love. Lord, let any discourse that exists among us be resolved peacefully, and above all, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It is in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray tonight. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Nancy, I don't think your microphone's working. Okay.
Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Joe Cronin. Councilmember Joe Breisel.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Mr. Cronin's here.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move the oil report from the county executive up
Second.
next.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Elman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just have two slides here that I'm going to use, and
Oh, sorry.
I'll skip.
I think Mary's back there. We
Well,
had some
I
other slides up
understand.
first.
It's not that big a deal. A week ago today, we all remember, we heard the terrible news from Texas about the school shooting. And, of course, everyone was quite upset by that. And then a few days later, some even perhaps equally upsetting news came regarding the way in which law enforcement had handled that situation. And if you all remember, I think it was after the Sandy Hook
There you go.
shooting. Yes, okay. There was actually one before this, but this is the one I want you to be aware of. Is back after that happened, we did some looking into this, and what we found was that law enforcement, the schools, and the mental health community all prepared and talked a lot about school shootings, but none of them talked to each other. So one of the things we did back then was to get those three groups together, created a great dialogue. And one of the things that came out of it was this effort by the Sheriff's Department to coordinate the MACTAC training for all law enforcement agencies in St. Charles County, prepare officers to respond to active shooter incidents. And I've asked Chief Friz to come, and he's with him is Captain Dave Cathy, to talk about what we did then And I hope to reassure all of us and everybody at home that should this ever happen here, that our law enforcement people are prepared to do the right thing. So I would like to yield the rest of my time to Chief Friss.
All right, thank you. Chief?
Captain Katz, good presentation.
Good evening, Captain. Thanks for coming.
Councilman, thanks for having me. Hopefully this slide will, I was requested this over the weekend in reference to another tragedy yet again in the United States at school. And we wanted to reassure the council and the citizens of the county that we have been trained properly and we are prepared for an active shooter incident such as that just happened in Texas again. Hopefully this will. Definition of MACTAC. MACTAC is what we taught. We started teaching MACTAC in 2012 at the assistance of Mr. Ellman and the chief at the time. We went through and selected individuals from every police agency in the county, and we had about 25 instructors. And at that point, we mustered them all together and we put on a training for the entire county. Every certified police officer in St. Charles County was taught at that time. So over 650 people, over 650 police officers were taught at that time. What we taught was MACTAC. MACTAC was brought to us after 2008, around the time of Virginia Tech shooting. Obviously, we had the major incident that pushed every police agency in the country to change their tactics was Columbine. Before that, we would surround, call out, call SWAT. We realized that wasn't working and made some more changes. Eventually, after the Virginia Tech shooting, where the individual went inside, locked the doors, and continued his mass murder spree inside the theater, we realized we had to have quicker action. So we've gotten quicker and quicker. MACTAC came through us because a bunch of agencies, including the military special ops, large agencies like LAPD, all the way over to New York, came together and they decided on a plan that we could all use that would be beneficial across the country. So ever since then, pretty much every agency that I speak to, and I go to a lot of different places in training, we pretty much all do MACTAC, whether it's called MACTAC. Most of them are called MACTAC, but sometimes they just call it active shooter training. So what that stands for is multi-assault counterterrorism action capabilities. It's really hard to remember. So the bottom line is it's designated to train the first responders in proper techniques and tactics when responding to an active shooter. Why do we do MACTAC? The incidents are spontaneous, obviously. We have no idea they're going to happen. Suspects are unpredictable and usually heavily armed. 98% of them are act alone. That's a percentage that we really stress to our officers when we train them. There's only been a few incidents, so San Bernardino and a school shooting in Arkansas that multiple assailants have been involved. So really we need to stop the one assailant. Incidents involve large victim environments, or what we call soft targets. They have no way of defending themselves. First responders were outgunned. Initially they were. First responders were not sufficiently trained, which we found out from Columbine. Tactical or SWAT intervention is way too late to be effective. Most incidents last between 3 and 5 minutes. That's the golden time we have. Then it's over. About a third of the time, the person will kill himself. A third of the time, the officers will shoot and kill him. And a third of the time, he gives up. So equal amounts. Multi-jurisdictional issues are also evident, and that means across city or county lines, we needed each other to know what they were doing. I needed to know how Lake St. Louis was trained. He needed to know how Wentzville, St. Charles City. We're all on the same page now. The purpose, we need swift and aggressive response to minimize the number of victims. Again, we have 3 to 5 minutes to do that. We have to stop the assault and neutralize the threat. And when I say neutralize, I mean kill or capture. There's no prettier way to say that. We have to limit the suspect movement or prevent escape because, as I said, 1/3 of the time they try to do that. Originally, we got that from St. Louis County, as I discussed earlier. We've taught our 650 in St. Charles County commissioned officers a 10-hour block. Anybody that's been through that training knows it's very rigorous. It's a long, hard day. Starts with the basics, crawl, walk, run. And by the end of the day, they're doing scenarios where the lights are going off, fire alarms are going off. We have audio recordings of shootings, we have live blanks going off, as real as we can get it. The training teaches officers from every or any agency to respond swiftly in the same way. That was what was so important. During this time, we also learned, we went to 4E, which is educate, escape, evade, and engage. An easier way to say that, which most people know, is run, hide, fight. That's the FBI term. Run, hide, fight, this is what we go around to the schools and teach, and we'll do schools or non-for-profit organizations. What we do for them is a 4-hour block, and it's a PowerPoint followed by scenarios and stop the bleed training. So at that point, we started doing pressure points and tourniquet control to stop the bleeds. We realized from different incidents such as Virginia Tech and Columbine that if we can stop that bleed within 5 minutes, most people will survive the long run. If they last 5 minutes, they'll survive. All school staff, including custodians, kitchen, the principals, everybody was involved in that. So we've reached out to, especially with St. Charles County, our venue covers Francis House School District, and they have over 3,000 staff, and we've taught every single one of them. We also have Orchard Farm, and they've been taught as well. This is an actual depiction of a slide. I took the slide right out of our training, and I wanted to show you what we teach. The hallway movements, explain and demonstrate. This is what we show them, and our instructors have the cards with them, and we go over a one officer, that's a kill mission, right? So what we're telling them is you can do it. If the shooting is going on, you have to stop it. And if you're the only one there, you're the only one going. So they know, even for as long as we've been training this, that's the way it's been. Then we go into 2-officer kill mission and 3-officer, that's with a rear guard, that's what RG means, and that's when you can start doing search and search techniques where it slows down, where if the shooting stops, we don't know where the suspect is, then we have to slow down and locate him again. At that point, you don't want to be by yourself, you need to have more people with you. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that. That is an actual slide from what we teach them. I was told to keep it short and sweet. I wanted to do that for you. I wanted you to be reassured that we have taught all of our officers in St. Charles County as well as St. Louis County. St. Louis City has a similar active shooter program that they follow, similar. So it's pretty much countywide, statewide, countrywide. So, any questions?
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very much for everything you've done. So the next item on the agenda is a conditional use permit, bills for final passage. Recall that we had our hearings on those last time, so these are up for a vote today. Bill number 5061.
Bill number 5061, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-01 for custom butchering to Anthony Brinker and Tammy L. Brinker, property owners, and Tony's Processing LLC applicant.
Would you read the title and call the roll, please?
An ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-01 for custom butchering to Anthony Brinker and Tammy L. Brinker, property owners, and Tony's Processing LLC applicant. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
Bill number 5061 passes. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for proposed use of disaster recovery funds. I'd like to call Mr. Meyer, Robert Meyer, up to the podium. Good evening, sir.
Hello. How are you?
Great.
I'd like to make a short presentation on the nature of this request that's before you. Later on your agenda, there's a resolution requesting that that you authorize the county and with the county executive's blessing, to submit a grant application to the state of Missouri for a little over $15 million in disaster recovery funding. And this is for long-term recovery. It's not for immediate assistance from the 2019 flooding. It's for long-term recovery. So I do have a short presentation on what that's about so that you and the audience will have a basic understanding of what's on the agenda later. Make sure I can. As most of you will acutely remember, in 2019, St. Charles County had about 90,000 acres underwater at one point, included both the Mississippi River Valley and the Missouri River Valley. It did not affect the inland creeks nearly as much, but at its peak, again, it was about 90,000 acres, and the President Trump declared a federal disaster Missouri-wide, statewide, but that included St. Charles County in 2019, based on storms, tornadoes, and flooding that occurred from April to July of that year. So why are we before you now? That was in 2019. Again, the reason is because there was immediate assistance rendered at that time by local, state, and federal officials, as well as not-for-profit agencies. But Congress allocated $30 million statewide across Missouri for long-term recovery from the 2019 disaster. And of that amount, approximately $15 million, $15.8 million is actually set aside to help people in St. Charles County itself. So it appears that St. Charles County is poised to receive about half of all the disaster funding for the 2019 disaster statewide. Now, the purposes would be for, I covered this already. The purposes would be for long-term recovery and resilience. So what I mean by that, are there homes that people still have that are substantially damaged or destroyed that they're owners of, that they don't have a good way of demolishing the home and dealing with it, or they can't sell it, for instance. Second, resiliency. How do we avoid being in the way of water in the future and avoid future disaster damage for our residents? Right after the 2019 flood, St. Charles County was really involved. In fact, the Community Development Department went out and did inspections on more than 2,200 buildings inspected in the city of West Dalton and unincorporated St. Charles County. And of that, we found 507 structures that were severely damaged, of them 322 residential structures. So the jurisdictions that applied to West Dalton and unincorporated St. Charles County. There was also a few other homes damaged in other communities as well. We don't have information for Portage to sue, but we feel those numbers are significant. The green dots represent major damage or destroyed buildings, and the blue represents the maximum floodwater extent in 2019. So the federal government allocated this $30 million. A statewide plan had to be prepared by the Missouri Department of Economic Development, and that has been approved. And in the plan, again, they are allocating about $15 million, a little over $15 million for St. Charles County to assist us. Now, there are some major caveats. For instance, a minimum of 70% of the program delivery funding must go to low to moderate income households, for instance. And also funding must follow a statewide action plan. This statewide action plan has very specific rules about how applications for a local voluntary buyout program, which I'll explain in a second, how those applications would be ranked and scored. And so this scoring, priority scoring, comes from the state of Missouri. And they're basically saying that if you want to apply for this funding, this is how you're going to have to score applications. The reason that term local voluntary buyout program is significant is because the statewide action plan has a list of eligible activities for St. Charles County, and the number one focus of that plan is for what's called a local voluntary buyout program. The concept is if you have a willing seller and St. Charles County is willing to buy it using these federal funds. By the way, there's no match required by St. Charles County. Then St. Charles County would purchase a home, a flood-damaged home, demolish that home, and then maintain that property as open space in perpetuity. And the main scenario for parcels purchased by St. Charles County along the Mississippi River, for instance, would be for wildlife habitat. That's the most likely use for the vacant parcels. St. Charles County held a public hearing on April 13th, which was promoted by cities in the county. We directly notified more than 2,000 impacted property owners by letter, and we had 53 people participating. And I would say that the people who came to the public hearing were very interested in possibility of participating. Everyone seemed happy to see that St. Charles County was able to move forward with at least applying for these funds. And I thought it was a very successful event. Additionally, we held a municipal meeting with all municipalities in St. Charles County were invited, regardless of whether they were impacted by flooding or not. So we had representation, for instance, from City of West Dalton, City of St. Charles County, St. Peters, and others as well. So that took place on May 5th. County staff accepted comments, and from these comments, and based on the state's requirements for how to design programs, we've come up with, in the areas that are in yellow, draft buyout zones, again, for a local voluntary buyout program. The reason that they're shaped the way they are, those draft buyout zones, is because they reflect, for instance, one requirement is that a majority of the homeowners in those buyout zones must be in favor of allowing buyout to take place within that zone, for instance. So we weren't able to just draw one blanket zone for the entire Mississippi and Missouri River valleys, but instead we had to be very, very specific about how we would draw potential buyout zones. But I would say that if you see the red dots, those are homeowners who have indicated to us in writing that they're interested in participating. So we tried to capture areas in the green dots, which are properties with major damage, and capture the areas with red dots where homeowners have indicated to us in writing that they're interested in talking to us about selling out their home. The priority, excuse me. The priority is for homes that were damaged in the 2019 flood, but there's also a concept called a disaster risk reduction area, whereby we could potentially include other areas where maybe they weren't flooded in 2019, but they were flooded in 2020, for instance, like in the city of St. Charles, there was a small area where it flooded in 2020 and in previous years. So our proposal is to present, with your blessing, submit an application to the state of Missouri in mid-June. The deadline is July 31st. And I would like to point out that in terms of where we're at with this process, we're really just at the beginning. We're talking about that circled in gold, applying, submitting the application. Once it's submitted, there's a really long process ahead of us, but that provides you an overview of how this would work. The process would include taking applications from interested homeowners. So what's going to happen is you have to have interested homeowners. They have to apply themselves. This is potentially a local voluntary buyout program where everyone agrees on the terms. Again, the next steps, by June 7th, we would request that the public provide us any final comments that you might have on this draft application. We would like to submit, with your blessing and the blessing of the county executive, the application by around mid-June, we're hoping. July 31st is the final deadline. Again, the maximum funding for St. Charles County is $15.7 million. For questions or comments, there's some contact information. Also, we have an information clearinghouse where we keep up-to-date information at sccmo.org/2185.
Is that it?
Yes, that's all I
Anyone
have.
have any questions? Yes, Joe?
Robert, most of these homes are in my district and Nancy's district.
Right, yeah.
And I wanted to say thank you and appreciate your work on this because this is a life changer for a lot of those folks. They got devastated pretty bad in 2019. This might be an opportunity for them to get back and be whole again. So thanks for your efforts on this. I think it's a great program, and I think you did a lot of work on it, and you did a good job on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Robert?
I got a question.
Yes, Joe?
Does this include agricultural ground too, or just residential structures?
Residences, homes where it's a primary residence, that would be the first priority. So if it was a vacation home, it would not be their first priority.
But does farm ground count?
No, it would not include farm ground because the intention of it is to remove flood damaged homes.
Why is it prioritized by income?
Because the money came through HUD, and they have national criteria that have to be met for all HUD funds, and one of those is that at least 70% of the funds have to go to people low or moderate income. Now, we're thinking that strategically we can use these funds. Maybe there will be some people who are above those income limits. Say, for instance, if we're able to purchase the majority of homes in a subdivision along the Mississippi River, but there's one or few people that are above the income limits, that does allow us a little flexibility to make them an offer as well, so we can complete subdivision buyout of a subdivision.
Okay, thank you. I have I'm sorry, Dave.
ahead.
No, Dave, I just had a procedural question. Go ahead.
As a part of that, as far as people that wanted to elevate their homes, was there money already available for that, or is that part of this?
This would not include the elevation at homes. It really includes homes that are below the base flood elevation, have been damaged. But in terms of raising homes, if it's damaged more than 50%, there's a county requirement that the home be removed from the floodplain or raised above the base flood elevation, at least 1 foot above. Sometimes there's an insurance rider, in fact, often there is, that it's called like increased cost of compliance. I think it's like $30,000 that people can take advantage of through their insurance agency to help pay for raising costs of their home.
That's where I was wondering where that money came from for people to elevate. Okay, thank you.
Procedurally, it looks like there's a resolution a little bit later on the agenda that pertains to this program. Am I correct on that?
Correct,
So
yes.
I'm wondering if there would be a motion to move that up so that we could take that up now. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
I think you have to have a public hearing before you vote.
Oh, we didn't
Yeah.
finish the public hearing.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, all right. All right, so, but we will do that after we finish with the public hearing. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak about this matter?
I have a couple of people who filled out cards. Lisa Key.
Do I have to swear these people?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm actually here tonight representing my mother, Betty Dreyer, who is really a lifelong citizen of St. Charles County. And in recent years, in the past 10 years, her home has flooded twice, to the extent that she has lost most of her belongings, and the flood actually totaled 2 different cars that were in her driveway. So really, I'm just here tonight representing her. She's 90 years old. She's very hard of hearing. She's back there in the corner. I'm not sure you can see her. But I'm here to lend my support to moving forward with this program. And I also want to offer my sincere thanks to Mr. Meyer with the county executive, and also with John Boyer with the City of St. Charles. You guys have been very, very helpful, and I'm really hopeful that this grant moves forward and that you can help people that are in need. So thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Arnie
Any-
Dienhoff?
Mr. Dinoff, Before you speak, I feel I should point out to you one of the rules about public comment. I was going to address that when we did public comment, that provides that a person wanting to speak may fill out one and only one speaker card at the meeting. So,
Madam Chairwoman, public hearings are exempt from that requirement. State law requires you, along with federal government, and I would ask you, ask your county councilor that you pay a lot of money to, because the federal government requires the public hearings.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just telling you because this is the one thing, but then when public comment comes, you're going to be limited to one card, one speaker card.
But my card, if you look at the top, it said public hearing.
I don't have your card, so that's why I
So
brought it up now.
they asked me
I
before
believe
to
you.
fill it out for public hearings.
I'm fine.
I've only filled out one public
Okay,
comment card.
go ahead then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members of council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate, running to be the next county executive. $15 million is a lot of money, and it's really nothing to sneeze at. I haven't seen any discussions, no debate, no criteria or discussions of this county council. This just came up a few weeks ago, as Mr. Hollander knows, at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and it was briefly discussed. Our county, for some reason, continuously builds over and over and over in the floodplain. We've gone through numerous floods and numerous losses. Our own county airport was flooded in 19, and we continually pour millions upon millions of dollars that it's going to flood again in years to come. We want to keep that from happening, and that way is to eliminate all fraud. The last couple go-arounds under the watch of Mr. Ellman, there was fraud that took place with the bidders and with the removal of homes and buying of property. I'd like to see these properties be park space, open space for all to enjoy in some fashion or way. Now, what's concerning to me, Mr. Myers said that 70% goes to low-income folks, and that's $97,000 or less. My concern is the 30% of the other money that goes to large income families who have secondary weekend homes along the river, either on the Missouri or the Mississippi. It's not fair. They've made private insurance claims and got private monies through the federal flood insurance program. Long-term recovery and resiliency, it's kind of a joke because there really wasn't any discussion until the last couple weeks. My problem is bids were given to political friends the last go-around of the administration, and inflated bid profits were gathered. I would ask that we ask the county auditor to audit the previous bid packages and this coming up bid package. We need competitive bids. We're all federal, state, county taxpayers. This costs all of us, and we need to stop the bailout because people take that risk when they move their home on a major river in a floodplain, knowing that right up front. These homeowners were not forced into building right in the floodplain. It was a risk on the homeowner, and the bailouts of the government just keep coming and coming and coming. I am asking that we look at fair actual appraisals this go-around. They weren't fair the previous go-around. With the floodplain in mind, we keep pouring money into this with risk constantly every year of floods. It's been raining for weeks. What's going to happen this year in terms of the rivers coming out of their banks? And what about the 400,000 residents that don't get this type of protection or this type of homeowner insurance and bailout? It's not fair to people who live away from the rivers. What about the county residents in the Heritage neighborhood, off of 94 in John White's district, that have coming here pleading to you for erosion and homes that are falling down and falling off of their foundations, and people have to move out because it's in jeopardy of being collapsed? You haven't addressed that. Why don't you use some of the money to address that in the Heritage? And I just was told tonight that the state legislature appropriated $2 million, and I'd like to see you match that $2 million so the program can go forward. We will be watching closely. We will be asking the important questions, and we will be keeping an eye on the administration to make sure that every T is crossed and every dot is dotted, and that people don't get rich off of this project, and that there's no fraud. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Any other testimony or comments on this particular matter? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to public comments. I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we had a motion on the floor to approve this resolution.
Yes. Yes, we did. Okay, is there a motion to move up the resolution to call it up now?
Motion
We did
made.
do that. Okay, all right. All in favor of resolution number 22-06, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
And the resolution carries.
I have to read the title.
Oh, to amend. Okay, would you read the resolution? Sorry.
Resolution number 22-06, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds.
Is there any further discussion at this time? Hearing none, would you read the resolution and call the roll?
A resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds. Councilmember Brazel?
No.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
And the resolution passes. All right, thank you. Then on public comments, as I indicated, I think we had the council rules on public comments up on the screen today, which hopefully all of you had an opportunity to read before you put in your speaker cards. And it does include the rule that speakers can only address topics that are on the meeting's agenda unless a point of order is made to the council chair, and that only one speaker card may be filled up by each speaker per meeting. With that in mind, then would you call up the first public speaker?
Sure, on bill number 5062, Michelle Baker.
Is Michelle Baker present? Hi. Why don't you come up to the podium, ma'am?
Since only 3 of us are able to speak on behalf of this, can I give my time to Eric Merchant? He came a little later than I did.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to, wait a minute. What are we speaking on right now? I'm confused.
You're speaking on your bill.
On your, yeah, your bill.
5062.
Uh-huh,
My
yeah.
name's Kenneth Baker. She actually put it in for me, and I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
But since only 3 people can speak, we wanted to give our time to someone else if that's possible.
Are there more than 3 people who want to speak on this
Yes.
bill?
Yes, we've got
Okay,
about
sure.
30 people total.
Okay, that's fine.
So, Eric, would you like to have our time?
Do you have a speaker card from this
Ye-
person? Okay.
Yes, Eric
Sorry about
Merchant.
All right, no, that's no problem, thank you. Hi, sir, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, council members. My name is Eric Merchant, and I'm a real estate agent with Trophy Properties.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have to swear or say anything?
No,
Just
this is
talk.
comment, not testimony.
This is regarding the Lombardo development that, is this working?
Yeah, give it a second.
It'll come up.
Yeah, and your time is up there on the clock there, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is regarding the Lombardo development that's proposed at South Point Prairie. And you'll see in there that there is a tract that is already 4 acres, and it's part of this project. Additionally, I took the boundary lines of that 4-acre lot, and I kept the north line and the east line, and I drew in a south line to create a 5-acre lot. You really can't see the yellow line that creates the 4, but it's right there. Then I drew a 3-acre lot inside the 5-acre lot. That's the difference between a 5-acre lot and a 3-acre lot. Additionally, of the folks that signed petitions, there was 12 and then 1 was revoked. So as of Friday of last week, there were 11. 7 of those petitioners that are opposing it live on less than 5 acres. This particular piece of ground is in the master plan for 1-acre lots between now and 2035. 3-acre lot is a whole lot better than a 1-acre lot. Additionally, if it goes to a 5-acre development, if Lombardo will even stay on with us, and they build a beautiful product, high-quality product that will improve everybody's value in the area, the roads are going to be potentially gravel roads as opposed to county roads if we do the 3-acre lots. Lombardo intends to keep the trees and not tear all the trees out, just where they have to put in roads and build homes. It's going to stay wooded, and the look from South Point Prairie or Highway Z with 3-acre lots versus 5-acre lots will be identical. This was passed unanimously by Planning and Zoning.
Excuse me, sir. Yeah.
I'm told this was passed unanimously by Planning and Zoning. And additionally, the siblings that own this want this property sold. They want this project. There are a couple that have already passed away. One of them is suffering from cancer right now. Another one is 70 years old. And they'd like to get this sold and closed before any more of the siblings pass away. This is their family heritage. This has been in their family for close to 100 years. And this is what they want. And finally, the neighbor on the east side and the north side, who comprises more boundary adjoining this particular project than anybody else, is Ann Thomas with Cherry 415 LLC, and she's here today, and she's in favor of this project. She owns the entire north line boundary, and she owns most of the east line boundary. And I guess I'm out of time.
All right, thank you. Next speaker on this
Jeff
topic.
Bieneman.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, I, was the final count 11? Because I had like 25 of them.
Yeah, I don't know something.
So that's all?
You got them, I should so.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make a point that everybody else has to have 5 acres. I don't know why a developer can come out here and get 3 acres. I mean, I just don't understand. And Sandy Mae, she retired now, and she was the one pushing for 5 acres so you could keep the sewage system and stuff on your own property instead of leaching onto your neighbors like it's done for years. The infrastructure out there can't handle it already. I mean, you guys are, a couple other ones are on Hopewell Road. You're over flooding that. There's going to be more accidents over there. Double D. Mr. Ellman pulled that out of Brazel's jurisdiction. Now there's a bunch of homes going over there, and it can't handle it. But I just think you guys are working for the developers and not the people of the county. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Greg Grappenthin.
Hello.
Hi, sir.
My name's Greg Grappentine. I live at 3840 South Point Prairie Road. I live on 3 acres that was part of the original farm. I cannot ask Lombardo to go on 5-acre lots when there's 2 new developments on South Point, or just down South Point Prairie, South Point Estates and Creekside Farms, 2.7 miles or 5 minutes away. And utilities haven't been finished, or just have been finished, but the finished grading hasn't been done yet. And these are all 3-acre lots. So, I mean, it's just finished. So I don't see how it's fair to them to make them go 5-acre lots, if that all makes sense.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Scott Dyer.
How's everyone doing?
Hi, sir.
Well, I find I live at 2950 Dyer Road on a family farm. I built on 5 acres 3 years ago along with my brother. And I find our situation even more unique of a situation than what's presented in the prior comments here. With Mr. Hughes' development and McMenemy Farm that borders our farm. The McMenemy Farm is 60 acres that borders us. You know, they're arguing over 3 acres. I'm arguing we're going to go to a 1 acre, half acre, and quarter acre development on 60 acres. I don't know if any of you have seen the plan. I have seen some of it, and it's 102 lots on 60 acres. So, you know, prices kind of generate a higher density development. And I think what my concern is like, what is that plan going to look like? If it's 102 lots, what is the square footage with the county? And also, the current house prices are going to change. I sell real estate for a living. Some of these houses in Riverdale, they do sell for $400,000, $600,000. Did they sell that in 2012, 2010, after '08? You guys can look at the numbers and they kind of tell themselves. So I'm kind of concerned of what it's going to look like. And I just got questions from Mr. Hughes on what the development's going to look like. If he's going to put something that he says he's going to do, and I want to make sure that, it looks the way what he said. Because if we're getting painted a picture a certain way, and it turns out differently because the economy changes and there's a recession that could be now, or maybe even later, I want to know what it's going to look like for everybody on Dyer Road, including my family farm and everybody that's involved in our situation. Also, with that being said, I want to know if Mr. Hughes is going to keep the development in his name, or it's not going to be resold to another developer or another situation. And I also want to know what the deed restrictions are going to look like, and if they can put an HOA with a minimum square footage, if you guys decide to pass this tonight. I don't think there's enough information presented for you guys to pass this tonight. I think there needs to be more information. There's more of a plan than just the 60 acres on Dyer Road. It's a fact. It's inevitable. It's going to keep growing if you guys pass this tonight. So I wanted to see, and I can't, you don't know what the whole future is going to look like, but we need to have a better idea. If you guys are going to pass this one, then what's the next one going to look like? What's the next, like when does it stop? I had to build on 5 acres on the family farm. If you guys are going to go from 3 and then down to quarter over here, then what is it going to look like? I want to know. I want to hear it. So.
Thank you, sir.
Doug Teeman.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Doug Teeman. I am with CEC Engineering, and I would like to have a short presentation during the final passage of Bill 5062, if I could, please.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I would like to do it at the time.
Oh, you want to, all right. Okay,
Is what I'd prefer to do.
it's fine.
And then on Bill 5063, Tom Hughes.
Good evening. My name's Tom Hughes. I'm the owner of Charlestown Crossing LLC as the applicant for Riverdale Grove. Scott has my cell number, and I've talked to him several times. I've already told him what it's going to look like. It's going to look like the enclave of Riverdale. The lot sizes are the same. There are $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 houses in there with 4-car garages. It's absolutely one of our best, most beautiful developments, and Scott knows that. This ground is different in a sense. It has sewer and water available to it. It's adjacent to an existing almost 700 home community. The density in that community, this is almost half the density of the existing Riverdale. There's 1-acre lots surrounding the border. The interior lots are 90 feet wide. We've had several meetings, we've had several plans. The density in Riverdale on this piece of ground would have been 180 homes, and we're proposing 102 with sewer and water. And I really just want to make myself available, as always, to answer questions. I know the home sizes were an issue. We're willing to put into covenants and restrictions minimum 1,700 square feet home, which is larger than some of the homes in the adjacent Riverdale. And once again, I'm always available to answer anybody's question. We've met with the neighbors. I've met with Scott. I understand his concern. However, Riverdale is one of the most successful, beautiful communities in St. Charles County, It's got almost 700 families raising their kids and sending their kids to school, and we're very proud of it, and I would ask for your approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the park at New Melly Lakes, John Bear.
Good evening, John Bear from Augusta, Missouri, out in the southwest part of the county. $836,000 for the park at New Melly Lakes. $150,000 for a change order for the park there at Matson Hill on that barn. A $30 million Parks and Recreation budget. What is the primary purpose of government? Well, judging by your typical meeting agendas and where you devote your time and energy, I think the council's answer might be to regulate, tax, and spend. And a quick look at your 2022 budget of over $400 million, I think, shows your propensity. We've got a 5% increase here in total revenue and a 13% increase in expenditures. That doesn't look fiscally responsible to me. So the answer I would really like to this question is the primary purpose of government is to protect the rights of its citizens. And instead, you, Chairman Schneider, have taken every means possible to censor your citizens' right to free speech. I don't know if you noticed it, there was a rally out front tonight with about 100 people there who are concerned about things. You denied them a work session. You insisted that public comments could only be made about official items on the agenda. And then you made sure that Councilman Brazel's resolution could not be put on the agenda. So $836,000 for the park at New Melly Lakes. I mean, it is within the authority of you, the council, to budget a tiny part of your $400 million budget for a forensic audit of the April 5th election. And I would urge you all to please vote yes on that resolution.
Sir, please confine your comments to the topic that you signed up to speak about.
Nancy, if there's somebody who wants to speak about something that's not on the agenda, then I can
Can I
make a
keep my
motion.
30 seconds?
I can make a motion to amend the agenda, which I will do whenever you try to discard one of these cards over
I'm
here.
not trying to discard
Yes, you
anything.
do.
I'm trying
You're
to
censoring
follow the
everybody.
rules.
This isn't your meeting, this is a public meeting.
If I can have my remaining 30 seconds. One of my favorite sayings is George Washington didn't use his right to free speech to defeat the tyrannical British. He shot them. I'm not suggesting we're at that point yet, but I'll tell you, you've got a lot of concerned citizens that are about ready to start throwing tea in the harbor, and you really ought to listen to them.
Next speaker, please.
Speaking on the park at New Melly Lakes, Jen Olson.
Please confine your comments to the topic that you signed up to speak about.
I'm going to shy away from the opinion-related restrictions. Those are illegal.
Those are not my restrictions. Those are
Content,
the
you-
council or the council
You cannot
rules,
have an
ma'am.
opinion-based restriction on my speech.
These are the council rules, ma'am.
The council rules don't supersede the Constitution. We've had this talk. Mr. Cronin, as for the state statutes that you quoted last week, or 2 weeks ago, under this 115.136.
They can pull them up on the screen. Let's do that, I think.
Okay, I have it right here.
Well, I think it would be nice if everybody could see them.
Okay.
I think Mary's back there. She said,
Okay, since
let
he's
her know if we
filibustering, can
wanted
you guys
those
start
up
my time
there.
again?
I think we ought to pull them up.
Okay, that's fine.
Just time it for a second. Let's get them up so everybody can see
Yeah,
them.
that's fine. I don't know where she is, but,
We weren't ready for the comments on
They're working on it now.
yeah.
There you go.
There they are.
So let me get this straight real quick. You guys got slide presentations to talk about elections, but you're telling these people they can't talk about elections? Is this what we're doing?
This is the paper I would like to show you, not your
We brought this up at the last election. She wants to talk about it too.
Okay, and you just
we
had it-
brought
But you just put, you just opened up the
Ready to go.
agenda to talk about elections. That's what you just did right now. So let's
No,
talk
I
about
just,
elections.
no, I just asked,
Yeah.
that be showed because that's the law and she just cited it.
Okay,
Straight
go
up.
ahead, ma'am.
Can we let Ms. Olson talk?
Yes, continue your comments, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. 115.136, the Secretary of State's duties pursuant to the National Voters' Right Act. In number 7, as you quoted last week, it says any person who is aggrieved may file a complaint. It doesn't say that's the only place they got to go. Also in the county charter, in section 1.5, powers, this county shall have all powers possible for a county to have under applicable law, as fully and completely as though they were specifically enumerated to this charter. That includes county commissions, county officers, county offices, county agencies, or the department, and all powers not expressly prohibited within the charter. Can you please point me to the section of our charter that prohibits you from requesting an audit? You fund it, you should be able to pay for it, you should be able to audit what you're paying for. Also in the county charter, in section 2.5, the legislative branch, the powers of that, how did we get an appointed sheriff? Anybody? This body got rid of the elected sheriff and gave us an appointed sheriff. So if you can do that with our sheriff, you have, this is my 3 minutes, Joe.
I'm answering your question. The voters approved it. You asked a question, I answered. Simple enough.
If we can get rid of an appointed sheriff and let the county charter rule that, or get rid of an elected sheriff and let the county charter or the county executive appoint one, if he's got that kind of power, why can't anybody in this room ask Kurt Barr to do a forensic audit of our machines? You know the community does not have faith in the election systems, whether it's people, whether it's machines, whether it's whatever. We just want someone to look into it, and Kurt Barr turned away the machine, or the 2 election machines that they were going to buy from him to look into it. There's no excuse for this anymore. None. It's infuriating that you guys don't think our opinion and our concerns are valid enough to look into. I don't want to wait until 2023.
Arnie Dinoff.
Thank you very much, members of the County Council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate, running for County Executive. Madam Chairwoman, in all due respect, this is America, not Russia. And you cannot censor me or any of my fellow citizens. You were a judge for how many years? 20-some years? You were a circuit judge. You should know the Constitution and the First Amendment. I have concerns of the checkpoint of security being unfair. I do not trust Joe Cronin from the last meeting where he attacked me, and I'll get into that in a moment, from bringing a loaded gun into our council chambers with his enraged hate. After the May 9th meeting, Joe Cronin lunged at me and attacked me, tried to assault me. treating me with physical, or threatening me with physical harm and violence. Terry Hollander stepped between Mr. Cronin and myself. Cronin stated, "After the election, I'm going to come find you and I'm going to kick your ass." I am asking for an investigation because Chief Fritz's police officers didn't know how to handle the situation. This was seen and heard by several residents, and they had accounts, and the police officers failed to interview the citizens. The way that this was handled by Officer A. Shook, DSN 694, was unprofessional and very alarming, lack of training, not caring, and he dropped the ball. Report number 22-02288. I encourage citizens to see if it even exists. I had to send an email to County Prosecutor Tim Lohmeyer, and there are resident statements, which I'll read at the next meeting, where the police stood by and did little. I want Joe Cronin charged with making threats of violence, and I want him to go through security like I and everybody behind me goes through. Chief Fritz, something needs to be done and changes are in order. You profess to be a national accredited police department? What a laugh. Officer Shook and another officer left their county patrol vehicles run for 4 hours with the AC on at an expense of $4.29 at that time per gallon. Wasteful, they had no canine dogs, it was cool temperatures out, and they were not on patrol. Mr. Cronin, you stated your mom votes at the last meeting. Joyce A. Cronin of Wentzville, registered to vote on 5/1 of 66, last voted 5/4 of 92. Hasn't voted in 20 years. That's what the public record shows. Now I want the council to look at the park. Blocks away is a county highway building, and let's save the $536,000 when they have room at the county building. Also facilities, $5.3 million. Where's going to be the return on investment on that $5.3 million on the consent agenda? Ask some questions, elected officials. Have some guts.
Jennifer Barker on bill number 5069.
Yeah, okay.
Hello, Jennifer Barker, Lake St. Louis, 63367. I'm talking in regards to 5069, authorizing agreements for participation in the Regional Information and Intelligence Center. Who would be in control of this entity? Let me explain to you part of what this agreement would be. This entry into these agreements is recommended by the Chief of Police and would serve the public purpose in allowing the county and certain law enforcement agencies to better serve the citizens of St. Louis County. The county executive or his designee and Chief of Police are hereby authorized to execute intergovernmental agreements with federal, state, and local agencies for the purpose of participating in the Regional Information and Intelligence Center. These agreements shall be in a form that is approved by the county councilor, similar in form and format that are which attached in Exhibit A. I have questions about this. Who would be in control of this entity? In the contract, it states that St. Louis County would be. Funding, what would it cost? I had a conversation with Mark Herr with the Center for Self-Governance. He has similar legislation that is being put in place in Yakima, Washington currently. And they stated that this would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment that the counties would like to share. But St. Louis County would be in charge of this equipment. He has several councilmen that would be willing to speak with us in regards to this conversion of government. It's an introduction to regionalizing law enforcement. This would put control in the hands of the unelected board members for law enforcement functions. St. Louis has 92 cities. How many are there here in St. Charles County? 23? I'm not sure. I'm new. I'm from St. Louis County. I left there for a reason. Cost to maintain this, teaming up with St. Louis County. Isn't St. Louis County wanting to merge with St. Louis City? They will be bankrupt. I'm very familiar with their budgeting skills. So in summary, the issues that I have is control, it's blurred jurisdiction lines, funding, initial startup costs, holding people accountable. Our sheriffs were already removed. St. Louis County and St. Louis do not have sheriff that have full power. They're not elected. This is all in Agenda 2030, folks. They want control of our health departments. They also want global policing goals. You can look that up under the UN Agenda 2030. And I don't trust this legislation when we have a chair that censors citizens and a council that won't investigate our elections.
I have 2 speaker cards on the heritage drainage issue. Tim Baker.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
I'm Tim Baker, candidate for St. Charles County Council District 7. I was hoping, I was checking the agenda tonight and was going to see the match for the heritage drainage. And it wasn't on there. I don't know if it's because the governor hasn't signed it, but I do understand that it's on his desk and he's going to sign it. So I do implore you again that these folks need some help. And I think it's great that you're helping the homes in the floodplain, but these folks are experiencing the same type of problems, and they're not in the floodplain. I mean, they're getting devastated by drainage. And just today, Tara lost another tree in her backyard, and this is caused by erosion. And this type of stuff needs to be fixed. I mean, we got to do something. And I've said it before, and I've said it again. I've been doing this for 32 years as a civil engineer. And there's so many municipalities, including St. Louis County before MSD would, they stepped up and did it. So I beg you, please find the match, because if you don't, this is their last way to turn. So that's really all I have to say. And again, I really just would hope that this would be on the agenda of the next council meeting. Thank you very much.
Jim Rutherford.
Council members, I'm Jim Rutherford, member of the Heritage Association, and I'm coming before you again tonight. We've had some conversations, John, that as Tim said, this is approaching the governor's desk now. Is there any idea, Mr. Elman, that this is 2 weeks away, a month away, or?
I'll give a short report on it.
Would you, please? And other than that, I appreciate and would really hope for your support, and when this does come forward. We are, I see everybody here in St. Charles tonight, having issues with elections, with budgets, with drainage, and I really don't understand. I can come out to St. Charles if I want to come out here, and I can get all the flooding I want. I can get a house on a half an acre, but it's got 9 garages, and I don't know where we're going with what's going on out here. I've been here for 30 years, and the change, I'm a product of the 70s, if you can't tell. But, the protesting back then was a little bit different than it is today. And I don't think it's as free and easy and as passive as it once was. And I don't want to live. I do disaster consulting. I've been to Minnesota. I've been to New York. I've been to everywhere there is after a protest in the last 3 years. And I don't want to see that happen here. And there's no need to, because like I said last meeting, you can wake up tomorrow, you sit on the board in the richest county in in Missouri. You're the council members here in Missouri, and you could wake up in a county under your control and guidance where you had a fair vote, good drainage, and the size lot you wanted to live on, and that could happen by next week. And I thank you.
I have 4 additional speakers related to voting. Non-agenda items.
Go ahead.
Judith Moorfield.
just authorized him to speak. Nancy.
Good morning. Good afternoon, good evening. I solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of County Council and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, and so on and so forth. So help me God. This is an excerpt of the oath to which every council member swears. Every time that we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we are also taking an oath and swearing allegiance to the republic for which the flag stands. Man-made laws should mirror God's laws, and that was the intent and basis on which the Declaration of Independence and Constitution were written. They address our God-given rights in specific format for governments to follow. You allot us 3 minutes to speak and 3 speakers per topic, both of which make it very difficult to fully address important topics. But even worse, you're now voting against a work session, referring us to other authorities, and passing your responsibility off. My fealty, and I believe that includes many in this room, is to God first, through his Son, Jesus Christ, not to man. When we oppose man-made mandates or laws contrary to God's laws or in violation of his laws, we are keeping our oath and benefiting the nation as a whole because we are standing against tyranny, the very thing for which our forefathers swore their lives, fortune, and honor. We are opposing fraud and any risk of it in a lawful manner by bringing our grievances to you. God inclines his ear to me and to all who call upon him in truth. How incredible is it that a mere man or woman would prefer to silence our concerns rather than incline their ears to them? You can get behind us in this important matter of making sure our votes are counted and are counted accurately. And as a lesser magistrate, you have the responsibility to do so. You have no idea how much we want to get behind you. You have no idea. You have the duty to search for ways in which you can support us, rather than looking through your rule book while we are talking to see how you can pass the buck. Rather than taking the assurances of 2 people who have a vested interest in not doing an audit, you should be demanding that the results be verified, rather than taking someone else's word, which cannot be verified. You can authorize a work session. You can authorize the funds for an audit, and you can put pressure on the election authority and the Secretary of State. We are beginning to believe that the only ones who are really for these electronic voting machines and therefore against audits are those that cannot get into office without the machines and or are receiving financial benefit from using them. Don't shut us out. We want to back you 100%. Let us.
Linda Rance. Hello, I'm Linda Rance with Missouri Canvassers. I spoke before you 2 weeks ago at your meeting. There's a resolution I know was shared with all of you asking you to approve funding for an audit if the election authority chose to do it. There are 4 whereas clauses in that resolution. Whereas number 1, there is no final list of voters available. I have a sunshine request response from Kurt Barr where he states, "We do not keep a list of voters." Number 2, I have an email from the deputy at the election authority, Mark Parkinson, who wrote to say that he sent a list of voters and said, keep in mind, anyone who has moved or died since the election is not on this list. There is no full list of voters. Whereas number 2, voter rolls are inflated. Mark Parkinson again sent an email where he gave the count, one more, thank you. He gave the count for St. Charles at 90.3% voter registration. The U.S. Census Bureau says that the average across the nation is 70%. Easy math is that 90.3 minus 70 is that your voter rolls are inflated by 20.3%. 2 weeks ago, I gave all of you a copy of our 78-page canvassing report. Even though my name and contact information is on the inside cover, other than Councilman Brazel, I have not heard anything from any of you with questions or inquiries about the results of canvassing in the state. We usually do targeted canvassing, but we will do a random sample. Turn it sideways. Thank you. We canvassed the Capitol when we gave out our report. We found that Senator Bill Onder had what we call a ghost registration at his home for 20 years, where there was somebody on the list that was the son of his previous owner who sold him the house. We decided to do a random sample of this council and the county executive, the 8 of you. What we found is that 3 of you have adult children living at your residences who are registered to vote. 1 appears to live in Texas. The other has not voted, has no voter activity. And, thank you, 1 more. Sorry, getting it out. You should be very concerned because out of the 8 of you, only 3 show votes recorded in the April 5th election. That means that 5 of you either have your votes lost, which we should talk to the election authority about why your votes are not recorded, or you chose not to vote in the April election. And Councilman Cronin, with all due respect to Arnie, our records show that your mother that you mentioned has not had a vote recorded for her since 2012, 20 years ago, even though you mentioned she just voted in the last election.
She's 93.
You said she voted.
She told me she did.
I
Sorry.
understand, but for both of my,
Okay,
you should check the records.
let's get it.
Next speaker.
Bye. Byron Keelan? 4. She said 4.
Good evening. My name is Byron Keelan. I'm the president of Freedom Principle Missouri. The Freedom Principle Missouri is a pro-citizen, pro-America first, pro-Missouri first, 501c4 membership-based organization. I'm here tonight to discuss what I believe is the greatest threat to our American republic. That threat is ranked choice voting. As we meet here tonight, the Missouri Secretary of State is verifying signatures to put ranked choice voting on the November ballot. Ranked choice voting is anti-democratic and it is anti-America. Ranked choice voting takes away the one person, one vote process that has been in place since our country has been founded and instead forces voters to rank all candidates from favorite to least favorite. Ranked choice voting disenfranchises voters. It doesn't create enthusiasm, it depresses it. Ranked choice voting will lead to weak candidates that will threaten our rights. Weak candidates mean that they will be easily swayed by special interests that will impact our freedom of speech, Second Amendment rights, taxes, pro-life legislation. Who is behind ranked choice voting? The group behind ranked choice voting petition is a group called Better Elections. The chief leader of this group threatening our republic is none other than former Missouri GOP executive director and campaign manager for current St. Charles County Executive Steve Ellman, John Hancock. As of April 22, Missouri Ethics Report says that they have raised more than $4 million and have spent more than $1.75 million. John Hancock's own company has donated more than $30,000 in just 3 months this year. Better Elections Missouri also includes Democratic consultants who include Mayor Tashara Jones and other operatives of Better Elections include David Barklage, a convicted felon, and GPS, a Democratic political consulting firm. The primary backer of Better Elections is a Virginia-based not-for-profit group called Article 4, who include advisors of President Obama and Hillary Clinton. The Freedom Principle tried to defeat ranked choice voting before it could be put on the ballot, but progressive Republicans in the Senate killed HJR 131 that would have protected the one person, one vote in the Missouri Constitution. We encourage So as a result of this, the Freedom Principle is now developing a plan to educate voters in the St. Louis region and working with other grassroots statewide to defeat ranked choice voting in November. We encourage everyone here tonight to visit our website at freedomprinciplestl.org, join our organization, and help us defeat those that want to take our right to vote and destroy our republic. Thank you.
Amber Crawford. This is four. This is the fourth.
My name is Amber Crawford. I'm here to remind you in every council meeting that we will not forget what you've been doing and what you have neglected to do, which is to authorize a forensic audit. The authority doesn't reside in the Secretary of State, rather it's the county council members' responsibility to not deny a forensic audit. In the last meeting, election authority, Kurt Barr, indicated that he doesn't have the authority to certify the political subdivisions elections. And therefore, he doesn't know anything about it. Well, later, he denied our request to ask for a forensic audit from these political subdivisions, which includes the school elections. So which is it? If he doesn't have the authority to certify an election, why does he have the authority to deny a forensic audit? There are many other irregularities that were not mentioned, and I'll go through them every single time I come here. So this is the initial sunshine request from Kurt Barr that requested the CTCL Zucker box for $670,000. That's the initial response that I get. And there has been a lot of misinformation as to how much was spent on the CTCL Zucker box. As you can see over here, the majority of the grant was spent on the electronic voting system, from the tablets to the voting machines, the tabulators. The election judges' salaries is only about 27%. And also, it was entered as an emergency bill. For something so important as an American election, why was it entered as an emergency bill, just like the election judge software that was entered Friday night, that you have a meeting on Monday where the councilmen and women all have their full-time job. So that leaves almost no time to really investigate the proposal. Now, so you see the number here. And it was rushed through by Director of Finance, Bob Schnorr.
Your time is up, ma'am.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
Final speaker. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
after talking to Joanne Lakem, I'd like to remove the facilities change order for $5 million for further investigation information. And this is a new process that we're using with this energy savings programs. And I think we need a little bit more information before we approve it. And Joanne said it's not time sensitive, so we have some time on it. So I'd like to pull it from the consent agenda and keep it there for the next meeting.
Second.
We can
Is there
get a
a
little more
second?
information.
There's the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that will be removed. Any other items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I would like to remove the Parks and Recreation and have more time to visit on the 836,000, have more time to visit about, with Parks on that. And then the other one was the extra work order for 150,000. I talked to Ryan about that, and there were some things in there that I certainly did not agree with, being in construction my whole life. And I don't want to say what he thought, but it's very questionable on these extra work orders. It just always appear and seem that government's an easy target for charging people extra money. I'd like to pull that one off for further conversation. Not tonight, but I'd like to visit with Parks and spend some time on with those two issues.
So specifically, that's the New Melly Lakes?
The New Melly Lakes, that was correct. That's it's in my district, and so is the
The other
extra
was
work
the
order.
change order?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those will be removed as well. Concerning the remaining items on the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve is amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That completes the consent agenda. Bills for final passage. First bill is number 5062.
Madam
And I
Chairman.
believe there was a gentleman who wanted to speak about that, but before that, I'm sorry, is there a motion?
There's a motion first.
Madam Chairman,
I'm
There's
sorry,
We
yeah,
have a
Mr. Elmer.
resolution too.
before you move forward, I
Yeah.
promised Mr. Rutherford that I would answer his question. Would you-
Oh,
would you
okay,
allow me
sure,
just-
go ahead.
Just a minute or two to do that. A week ago today, well, several weeks ago, I asked Mike Hurlbert to look at the situation with the houses that have the subsidence problem that are going down the hill. And I asked Mike Hurlbert to look at that and see if there's any way. I asked Mike Hurlbert to look at that and see if there was any way that those particular houses could qualify under this this money that we had the discussion about earlier for floodplain property. And he did the research on that and came back that only houses that were flooded in the 2019 flood were eligible. At that point, or well, even before then, John, you got a call from DNR, and they were doing some research on all this, I guess, for the governor, see if he's going to sign it and so forth. So they asked us about it. We encouraged them, the governor, to sign it. But we also asked, John also asked them whether that money, that $2.5 million, could be used for the subsidence. And as of yet, we have not heard back from them. Now, whether it is or isn't allowed, after I heard from Mike a week ago today, I've been asking our lawyers to look at the ARPA. And there's, what, Joanne, 1,000 pages of guidance on that. And we've asked them to look at that and see if we could find something in there that would justify us spending the money to deal with the houses. We think we can get money to deal with the erosion problem and all of that. But we're going to look for that, and of course, we have to do our due diligence on that, because if we approve that money and spend it, and then the federal auditor comes in and says, no, you can't do that. So, I'm optimistic, but I can't promise you yet until we're finished with all the research. Joanne, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Now, my understanding is the governor will have to deal with the bill. You asked Mr. Rutherford about timing. He has to deal with the bill by the end of June.
Yeah, and I think he will sign it, and we will be able to then use some ARPA money to match that. At least I'm talking to Mr. White. That's what he wants to do, and I'm supportive of his desires in that regard. But again, I wish I could tell you for sure it was going to work. If that doesn't work, we'll keep looking for some other way to find the money. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I think we need to hear Bill 5062 read.
No, there's a substitute, though. Do we do
I
it?
need to
Don't you
read
have
the
to
title
read
first.
Okay, go ahead.
Read the
Yeah.
bill
Bill
first.
number 5062, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the county of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A agricultural district to RR single family residential district per application RZ 22-05.
I'd like to make a motion to amend Bill 5062 to replace with substitute Bill 5062.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or amendment of the substitute that a council member would like to offer at this time?
The motion, all it is it's saying that the citizens of that area did file the remonstrance, and it has been verified and approved, so it takes a majority of the council to pass this bill. I mean, I'm sorry, five, yes.
Supermajority.
Supermajority, yes.
Okay, so hearing no amendments, all in favor of the substitution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now would you read the bill and call the roll?
Don't we want to talk about it, or?
If you have a comment you'd like to make?
I'd like to make a
I thought
comment,
we were
yeah.
going to make the comments before.
No, I thought we were just talking about accepting, but
Okay.
anyway, on this particular issue is, someone said it was a 35, the master plan is, when you put it out in front of people, we're at the very beginning of the 10-year plan, and this area is way too soon for 3-acre subdivisions. When Lombardo's, they do a good job, it's nothing against them. They called me, a gentleman called me, and I told him, I said, I can't tell you if this may be a good fit, but I said, I represent the people who live in the area. I represent the character of the area. I'm not going to meet with you and have these backroom meetings and see what's good or wasn't good. You're going to present it to a public meeting, we're going to have the conversation, and you're going to see where it airs out. And that's what we did. And so some of the folks in that area went around and they followed the rules that we have, and they got a remonstrance filed. They had every signature, had a notary on it. That takes a lot of energy. And so if there's 12 residents, over 30% in the area that feel that way, then that's who I represent. I represent people who live there. I don't represent the people who are going to live there. So that's my job. That's what all of our job is. And so somebody mentioned that it was a carpenter guy who lives out there. By the way, I had a large piece, and I would have loved to sell 3 acres off of it, but I sell 5 acres because that's the rule. And you could almost sell a 3-acre piece for the same as a 5-acre piece. That's just the way it is. And I sold 5 acres because that's the rule, okay? And I could have probably got the same amount for either one. And so those are the rules. And the reason we have the rules in this area is because people want the rural characteristics of this area. We want to be small town strong. You don't want to be bulldozered down by a bunch of houses. A bunch of multiple growth and small lots is a race to zero. It doesn't help anybody. It's more population, more crime, more traffic, more subsidies, because the income tax doesn't pay for the growth, traffic problems. It's not what people want in St. Charles County, especially southwest St. Charles County. And living with the character of a rural area is important when you're close to a city. Let's keep it rural, and let's keep it beautiful, and let's not have all this growth clouding up our area and ruin it. And that's just my position on it, so I won't support this bill.
Early in the meeting was stated that the planning and zoning voted unanimously, but I know they didn't because I voted against it. So that's one vote there. And I think I've mentioned at last meeting, each one of these proposals to go from 3 acres to 5 acres have to be looked at in the area that they're at. I don't think we can make a blanket statement that everything has to be 3 acres, everything has to be 5 acres. As an example, I'm going to be voting against this one, and later on here, I'm going to be voting for the other one. So those are, they say, well, you're contradicting yourself. No, I think they're two totally different things. One is in the southwestern portion of the county. The other is right up against a development that is exactly the same as the one they're proposing. So I just want to make those two things clear.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I do.
Yes, Mr. Elam.
My concern about 5 acres and 5 acres only is what I'm seeing happen out in that area over the last 5 years especially, is the cities are continuing to grow out there. And what they're doing is these developers are saying, well, if you won't give me the 3 acres, I'll just annex into O'Fallon or I'll annex into Wentzville. And Wentzville is giving them 10,000 acre lots, 15,000 acre lots. And you're seeing happen again and again and again. And what I'm concerned about is where are we going to set the boundary line, like we talked about when we did the master plan. I was looking for a 3-acre buffer that was going to run through there to set that defining line so the cities can't keep encroaching out into this rural area. And I think that's where the character of the area is being eaten away. You're continuing to have these subdivisions eat into it because they'll say, I don't want to do 5 acres, I want to do 3. We're hardcore on you can't do 3, so they annex into a subdivision or into a city, and they do 15,000 or 10,000 acre lots. Square feet, my bad. Which is the exact opposite of what you're trying to do. So you're trying to fight to preserve the character of a rural area, but by not setting up a boundary area there where you have a buffer zone that's 3 acres, if you go from that subdivision lot into a 3 acre, into a 5 acre, that's how the master plan is designed. And it gives you that buffer zone where we stop all the encroaching subdivisions that are coming out there. So my concern is, where are we going to set the buffer? When are we going to set this buffer that we talked about? Or are we going to have these subdivisions continue to encroach all the way out, and O'Fallon's going to grow halfway to Kansas City by the time we're done?
May I respond to that, please?
Yes, sir.
That is a valid point. However, the encroachment line is like Schnare Road's up, I don't know, quite a ways. There's other roads up that way that where you have highway in and you start approaching into New Melly region. You're right, that does make sense. It would be 3 acres coming down, and then when it gets closer to New Melly in that area off of the 3 and 4, someone said they have 4 acres or whatever. Those were done before 2006, before they did the 5 acre minimum, and some of them were probably broken off of farm parcels where their family are related in that manner. And so the fact is if people in our area, there are no 3 acre subdivisions in that vicinity. There's some miles up the road, but that's because of what you spoke of. It makes sense, but not in this area. It's pretty rural, and there are large parcels out there. So, and you're right. For a developer, it's sometimes could be challenging to figure out what works. But if they're farther north on Z and T and wherever, then it makes sense. We've been given the 3 acre subdivisions when it's closer to N. We have been doing it, and that's a good plan, but not this far west. This is pretty far west, and so that's why I can't support it. And I appreciate Terry, he's right about that. It depends on where it is. It's how it is.
2 of them further west are 3 acres.
Excuse me.
Eric, you're
Go
just
ahead.
making money off of selling it, so your opinion's pretty irrelevant,
I'm going
okay?
to ask the clerk to call, to read the title and call the roll. It's time to vote on the substitute bill.
Substitute Bill Number 5062, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District per application RZ 22-05. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
No.
Councilmember Hammond?
No.
Councilmember Hollander?
No.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
No.
The bill does not, it fails, the bill fails. Okay, so the next bill for final passage is Bill Number 5063. Would you please read the title?
Bill Number 5063, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District to R1D Single Family Residential District and R1A Single Family Residential District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District per application RZ 22-06.
I believe, was there a speaker who wanted to speak on this bill? Oh, 64? Okay. Oh.
He wanted to speak on it.
Oh, but he didn't. Oh, okay. All right, so please read, if there's no discussion. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cronin, excuse me.
I'll wait till the noise comes down a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you fill out a speaker card, ma'am? I'm sorry.
It was past 7.
Give her 3.
Public comment. Well, she didn't, she wasn't allowed.
No.
So, ma'am, what bill did you want to speak on?
I after 7 p.m., I
Which is
took no
this
more
bill?
speakers cards.
Yeah, I know,
Speaker
that's the
cards, there were
rule.
2 of them that came in, or they even asked for a card after 7. And so I have 2 speakers who were late with their speaker cards.
So, do you wish to speak on bill number 5063? Okay, apparently there's no objection from the council. Yeah, but you can come up and fill out a speaker card while Mr. Cronin does make his statement. Yep, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Cronin.
Okay, history of this is City of St. Paul reached out to me several times about discussions with Mr. Hughes about getting water from the water tower and using the Duckett Creek sewer plant for development that was 180 homes. Knowing that that did not buffer the county neighbors around it, okay? I met with Mr. Hughes several different times in an effort to buffer those neighbors and make the development a little bit more compatible both with Riverdale, the residents of Riverdale, and also the neighbors that surround this property. Every neighbor adjacent to the property, I either called and made available the plans, including Mr. Dyer. I met with him several different times, okay? Most of them at that time said they understood and they were good with the plan. Now there's some opposition to it, I understand, but here's the thing. You've got 1 acre lots on the northwest and part of the east boundary. The subdivision itself with the lots the size of Riverdale border Riverdale. And when Mr. Dyer asked about what's the plan, I can tell you in my district the plan is, okay, Flint Hill is 1/2 acre lots with public water and sewer. St. Paul is 1 acre lots with public and sewer. That's what's, with public and water and sewer, that's what they've got. Without public water and sewer, it's a 3 acre lot with county streets, county and restrictions, and county maintained streets. And then we did the minor subdivision plot with the 5 acre lots for the further areas where they can have private streets with gravel. It's a good mix. It's been working pretty well in that area. So, Mr. Hughes has done a lot of work on this, and I give him a lot of credit from going from 180 to 102 and trying to make it work with the landowner, trying to make it work with St. Paul, because St. Paul is providing the water. If St. Paul said, no water, this wouldn't happen. So it's a good mix. And I think another thing, when you talk about the 3 acres and the 5 acres, you got to understand a lot of young folks in this county who are from the area, okay, like St. Paul, okay, can't afford a house on 3 acre lot or a 5 acre lot in our community anymore. It's too expensive. Miss Bauer, your son lives there, okay? I mean, you want to keep him around close with your grandkids, okay? He can't afford to build a 3 acre a house on a 3 acre lot, nor can my kids. My kid lives in a subdivision in St. Paul with the grandkids. So the subdivisions that Mr. Hughes builds, if they're buffered correctly from the surrounding area, do serve a purpose, and that there's a lot of younger generation that move there. There's also a situation where a gentleman on St. Paul who had a 5 acre lot and had a stroke, can't take care of it, but doesn't want to leave St. Paul because he loves St. Paul. He bought a home from Mr. Hughes because of that. So there's nothing wrong with this thing. It's not going to, I heard the same arguments 20 years ago with Riverdale, and a lot of folks that spoke out against it the most end up having kids there. So I'm supportive of it, and I think we had a lot of discussions with a lot of people, and we tried to come up with the very best plan we could.
Thank you. Any other comments from council?
Let the lady speak.
Yeah, I said from council.
Oh, from
Okay.
council.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am, come up.
Okay.
Can you state your name, please?
My name is Terry Bauer.
Go ahead.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I live in St. Paul. I've lived there for almost 37 years. I live on Dyer Road with my husband, and we've raised our kids there. It's a fantastic community to live in. And when it was brought to my attention that this property was going to be developed right next to the Riverdale subdivision, it gave us some concern because the county, the planning and zoning is 5 acre lots. That's the rules. So my concern is that why are we changing the rules for one developer? When I was at the last council meeting, I had, there was a lot of willingness and eagerness of some of the council members to accept what Mr. Hughes was saying, that the fire district They haven't said anything to me. The school district, they haven't approached me, so it must not be a problem. Well, you can't just go off one person's, because they said that. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure. There's going to be a lot more traffic. There's going to be a safety issue. 79 butts up against that property. And, there's some safety concerns there. Another thing that I struck me in last meeting was that a large majority of people in St. Paul want this high density. We don't. 5-acre lots, fine. That's great. I have a 5-acre lot development going up across the road from me right now. So we're not for high density. And so I wanted to say that what I wanted to propose today was that we table this, because I didn't realize, and I found out from the last council meeting, that we could do a remonstrance. And so, but when I called county council and I got the information by email, it said that I needed to have that in 2 weeks prior to the next meeting. Well, that just wasn't going to work. So I just feel like I need to, the people around that area in St. Paul, that we need to fight to the bitter end to make sure that, if the majority of people really want that, then so be it. But I feel like I'm asking you guys to table this until at least next month's council so that I can do the work. That remonstrance is a big job. I have to get lots of signatures and notarized, and so I just want to be able to do, for the people, not for a developer. You guys, you're supposed to be for us and not for a developer. So I'm just asking you if you could table that. I mean, St. Paul is a wonderful place, and we just don't want high density. We want to have it the same way that it's been. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Yeah, again, I just want to point out a couple of things. First of all, the Riverdale development that is there, certainly, I think, allows for this type of development to be next door. Basically, it's the same thing. In other words, there's already a very large subdivision. This would be next to it, we'd be hooked up to it. Again, as I said earlier, every situation is different, and I think this one is pretty obvious that where that it's located and what is next to it and what they're calling for, I think fits in. So that's my point.
Ma'am,
I got a quick-
your time is over. Okay. Any other?
I got a quick point here. The Riverdale subdivision was the beginning of the demise of St. Paul when they started cramming them houses in there. And whoever made those decisions made very poor decisions, and so you had lack of leadership in your community, in my view, because St. Paul is a beautiful community. And I think that when people think, oh, its growth is coming, let's just cram a bunch of houses in there, it's really bad planning and bad decision, and it ruins your character. I would like to make a motion to have this tabled, to give these folks an opportunity to digest it to the next meeting. If anybody give me a second, that'd be great. If not, whatever.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I was on the board of Aldermen in St. Paul when Riverdale was approved. And I can tell you straight up, similar to the last discussion, had this board of St. Paul not approved Riverdale, that would now be an O'Fallon subdivision. And we wouldn't be having this discussion at all, because that whole 6,000 acres up there would have been wide open for O'Fallon development. If you talk to anybody, the mayor, or anybody who's on that board at that time, that's the case, okay? This subdivision, the proposed subdivision, is the same size lots as Riverdale, where it adjoins Riverdale, and the surrounding area are 1-acre lots, which is something that's allowed in St. Paul. I've met with anybody who wanted to talk to me. Ms. Bauer had the option to call me if she wanted to. She knows my number, okay? I lived in St. Paul most of my life and served in a lot of capacity out in that area. Nothing wrong with Riverdale. It's a nice community. There's a member of the Board of Aldermen that lives in Riverdale. There's a lady right now that's running for state representative in the area that lives in Riverdale. A lot of nice families. It's a very nice subdivision. To say that's the plague of St. Paul, I think is very unfortunate that someone would say that. That's what I have to say.
Okay.
It's not a
Is there any
discussion.
further discussion? Is there, excuse me, is there a second on the motion to remove?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second.
Can I make a point real quick?
Yes.
Just so you know before you second that. If it's 2 weeks to turn in the remonstrance, that's 13 days before the next meeting. In other words, you're going to have, if you want to give her the opportunity to do the remonstrance, that means you're going to have to table this at least through the next meeting and into the end of June, because she's not, would you? I'm sorry. Thank you. So just so you're clear, if you're seconding to pull that off, then she doesn't have the time to get a remonstrance done before the next meeting, so she would have to get that done, they'd have to certify it, and it would be at least the end of June. Just point of order, just so you're clear.
That'll be my motion to the end of June for tabling it, if John seconds that.
Did you
I think
second
can
that
only table it until the
motion?
next meeting.
No.
You can't table it
Always,
past the next meeting.
well, you'd have to vote to bring it back on. Yeah, you're right, correct. We can
only
suggest,
table.
yeah.
Okay,
If she
so the motion to table it fails.
We didn't vote on it.
We have are you still
Wait,
seconding?
No, I thought there was no second. That's
No,
why I
John
said
seconded
that.
it. We
John,
can't,
did you keep your second, or did you withdraw?
I didn't second the second one.
What?
When you changed the date.
no, we can't put a date on it. It's got to be voted up by the council to come off the floor anyway. So just table it, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Can we,
So you do have a second then to table it?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The person who's invested a lot of money and a lot of time in this proposal, okay, is here, okay? And I think it'd be only fair to let him speak as well again, okay? Tom, we don't know what
Do you
that
wish to
tabling
speak
this for a
further?
month is going to do to your plans,
No.
okay? And I think it's fair to let you speak as well, sir.
He does not wish to speak.
Nope?
I couldn't hear you, Tom. What did you say?
I've said, really, I think this is beautiful. I'm very proud of Riverdale. I'm proud of everyone that lives in Riverdale. And we're going to be equally as proud of this community right next to it with sewer and water. So it's the council's decision.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
Well, wait a minute. I didn't. I was asking Mr., do you go along with tabling this till the next meeting? Okay, you do not. Okay, all right.
So, Mr. White?
Pardon me?
Mr. White, have you seconded the motion to table this bill?
No, I'm not.
All right, so we don't have a second.
So there is no second, so we will read the title and call the vote.
Bill number 5063, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District to R1D Single Family Residential District and R1A Single Family Residential District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District per application RZ 22-06. Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
No.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
The bill passes. The final bill for final passage, the final bill for final passage is Bill number 5064.
Bill number 5064, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an associate membership agreement by and between the St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force and member law enforcement agencies not located in St. Charles County, but seek to participate in the St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force.
Is there any discussion? Please read the bill and call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the execution of an associate membership agreement by and between the St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force and member law enforcement agencies not located in St. Charles County, but seek to participate in the St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes. That concludes bills for final passage. Bills for introduction. Bill number 5065.
Bill number 5065, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance amending Section 500.150 Residential Code for one- and two-family dwellings of Chapter 500 Building Codes and County Building Commission of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri.
Any questions or comments?
I do, Nancy.
Yes. Mr. Cronin.
I don't know if Mike is here, but maybe Robert could answer it, or maybe we can just get the answer for next meeting. I think this bill was in response to that bread and breakfast we had not too long ago where we didn't require a sprinkler system. And while I'm not in favor of sprinkler systems for those type of developments. I think some enhanced fire safety beyond a sprinkler system, besides a sprinkler system, I should say, might be in order, and I believe I mentioned at the meeting. You got to realize people are going to be staying in these dwellings, and they're not familiar with the dwelling. They don't live there every day. It's like it's moving into a house that you don't know anything about. So a carbon monoxide detector, for instance, cheap thing to do. A emergency lighting system, cheap thing to do. If the room is on a second story and people are sleeping in there, maybe a emergency ladder that can be used out the window. So I would like to talk about possibly adding some of those type of safety systems in to residential structures that are used for bed and breakfasts. I don't think everything I just discussed wouldn't cost the folks more than $100 or $200, and I think it would be a lot less. Make the residences more safe for those folks that aren't used to living in those places, and also not prohibit the development of them. So, Mike, you got any questions?
Yeah.
Questions? about that?
Mr. Hammond wanted to make a statement.
Joe, those items are already required as a part of this use. The only thing this is changing has to do with the number of people. And I think it's 1 or 2 additional people
Okay.
is all that's.
So all those
we're allowed.
measures that we're talking about, they're already incorporated into the code? Okay, well, thank you.
Mr. Halbert, that you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you wanted to add? Any other discussion about this matter? Okay. Moving on to the next bill, which is 5066.
Bill number 5066, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance of the County of St. Charles, Missouri, approving the preliminary plat for Summer Oaks.
Any comments or discussion? Moving on to bill number 5067.
Bill number 5067, requested by John Lyons, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing execution of Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission's State Block Grant Agreement, Airport Improvement Program Grant Project 21-111A-2 CFDA 20.106 to design taxi lane pavements at St. Charles County Regional Airport Smart Field.
Any comments or discussion? Moving on to the next bill for introduction, 5068.
Bill number 5068, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by John White, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute annual agreements with the University of Missouri Extension Council of St. Charles County to provide educational programs and services not to exceed $100,000.
Any comments or discussion? Moving on to bill number 5069.
Bill number 5069, requested by Steve Ellman and Kurt Frizz, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute agreements with other political subdivisions for the purpose of participating in the Regional Information and Intelligence Center.
Any comments or discussion? Moving on to bill number 5070.
Bill number 5070, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement with the Community and Children's Resource Board and the Developmental Disabilities Resource Board, both of St. Charles County, to act as a subrecipient of American Rescue Plan Act funds to identify services and service issues affecting children and/or persons with intellectual disabilities.
Any comments or discussion?
Does this say how much money that it's going, or just the ability to be able to use it?
Steve, did you want, or Joanne, did you want to answer that?
How much is it? It's $4 million.
Does that say that in here, Joe? Where's that say that at?
This was part of the budget when we talked about ARPA last year.
Yeah.
And yes, it does say that, I
In an
believe,
exhibit,
in
in
the
the-
summary.
Okay, okay, I'm just curious.
Bill number, I'm sorry, any other comments or discussions on 5070?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
on that, just let me explain. This is, as you know, we have the DDRB and the CCRB, which already distribute funds from various taxes. And ARPA, of course, is designed to make people whole who have suffered because of the pandemic. And what this money will be used for is these organizations that come in and request funds will be able to come in and say, because of the pandemic, we were not able to raise as much money last year, and here's how much we lost, or because of the pandemic, we had additional expenses providing services. And as we now do with those regular monies, they will go ahead and decide who deserves that, and they use the same process. People come in and they look at their reports and how well they've done with the money in the past. But we are asking you to approve the amount of money, but then the people that are distributing the money already on a yearly basis, they will decide who the money should go to and who is most deserving.
Okay, thank you. Bill number 5071.
Bill number 5071, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance amending the 2022 budget as adopted by ordinance 21-098 as amended for repair of potholes, replacement of deteriorating concrete road slabs, or reconstruction of segments of county roads and subdivision streets with poor pavement condition.
Comments or discussion? Mr. Ellman, did you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, just, the question is why now? And the answer is two things. Number one, as you know, over the last decade, we spent $191 million subsidizing MoDOT's system. And as of last year, MoDOT now has additional revenue. There was talk about maybe withdrawing that bill did not pass the legislature, so we are in a situation right now where people can comment on MoDOT's proposal, and they're proposing to spend an additional $191 million in St. Charles County. So that's money we do not have to subsidize anymore. We also now know that for the next 10 years, that money will be available. The tax has been approved by the voters, 72%. So the money's available. We'll take $10 million from ARPA funds, which is allowed, and we'll take the other $10 million from the half-cent transportation sales tax. Talked to several of the mayors of the cities. They're excited about this, but they've been trying to get us to approve money for maintenance for at least the last 10 years. And our main argument against it was, no, we need to spend that money on improving roads, and we need to spend it on MoDOT's system if they're not going to spend any money. And all of you are familiar with that. But for the people at home, the state basically made a decision. They didn't have money for maintenance and improvements, so they made maintenance number one, which is fine if you're one of the 100 counties in this state that haven't grown in decades. But if you were a growing county, we couldn't get by just maintaining the system we had. We had to build new roads, wider roads, better roads. And MoDOT was able to do that. And of course, 364 is the best example. But they were able to do that because of the money we did cost sharing with them. And the good news is we don't have to do that anymore. And that's why it's now, this money is available, that we can spend it on not just potholes, but slab repair, other maintenance that has been put off because we just didn't have the money to do it. And again, part of this money will go to the county highway department. They will do the unincorporated areas. For the cities, what we'll do is take the money and we'll match whatever they're spending. So in other words, if the city's already planning to spend $1 million, and they're a bigger city, we'll go ahead and match that. If they want to put in even more, then we'll match that as well. But I think it's, just want people to understand that we're able to do this now, and we weren't able to do it before when we had to go ahead and subsidize the state system.
Madam Chair?
Any further
Yeah,
discussion?
I do. Really, with the matching money, this grows from a $20 million project to a $30 or $40 million project.
Potentially.
Yes, potentially. And the mayors that I represent in my district, both O'Fallon and Wentzville, the words I heard were awesome, great, wonderful. It's really, really looking forward to it. But the question is, the bill really doesn't address the small cities like St. Paul and Flint Hill and Josephville and some of the other ones in my district. So can you explain to us a little bit how that works with those guys that are under contract with county to do maintenance? How that will work?
Well, as of right now, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, all those cities would have the same opportunity to do a match. Now, if you want to discuss doing that differently for those smaller cities, but the problem is, see, not all the small cities do that.
Right.
The ones that don't certainly are going to have to do the 50%. The ones that we provide that for them, in effect, we're giving them a break that we're not giving to everybody else.
No, I'm sorry, but they are, we will match them out of the transportation funds.
We'll match them out of the
Automatically.
transportation fund.
Right.
But I think you were asking, will we treat St. Paul the same way we do the rest of the unincorporated areas? And I think the way it's written, the answer is no.
No.
We'll
Okay.
treat them the same way we do O'Fallon and Wentzville, the way it's written.
Okay, that's all. I didn't see that addressed in the bill, that's fine. I just want some clarity on that. Thank you.
Any further comments?
I got a comment. Back to Cronin's point, it's true that Augusta and New Medley and these smaller communities, they don't have a lot of funds to match, just so it might be an idea. I'm just throwing it out there that we could consider these smaller rural, there's no business, they don't have any much tax base, so I know Augusta, John walked around at Augusta years ago trying to do stuff there and it never happened. They never had the money to match it, so, just a thought.
Okay, moving on then to Bill 5072.
Bill number 5072, requested by Steve Ellman and Sheriff Lewis, sponsored by Nancy Schneider, an ordinance amending the 2022 budget adopted by ordinance 21-098 to add one deputy bailiff, pay grade 206, within the St. Charles County Sheriff Department for the assignment to the new Circuit Court Division 15 Associate Circuit Judge.
Any comments or questions? That concludes bills for introduction. Is there any action on the tabled bill? Any announcements or miscellaneous? Take a motion to adjourn. We have two motions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Is it Terry second?